The observation gallery trembled as the massive containment pod scraped across the arena floor below. Metal screeched against metal, and every few seconds, something inside the pod slammed against its walls with enough force to dent the reinforced plating outward. Claire Foster stood near the back of the crowd, her hands clasped behind her back, watching the technicians struggle to secure the pod in the center of the combat ring. Around her, cadets from a dozen different species whispered to each other in hushed, nervous tones. A tall Threxian cadet with purple crystalline skin leaned toward his companion, his voice carrying despite his attempt at discretion. "They actually brought one here. I thought it was just a rumor. The last academy that tried this lost 3 cadets before they could stop the trial," another voice added from somewhere in the crowd. Claire said nothing. She kept her eyes on the pod, studying the pattern of the impacts. Whatever was inside was intelligent enough to test different sections of its prison, searching for weaknesses. That told her something important. Instructor Corvin entered the arena from the main doors, his 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of welcome. The Threxian warrior was a legend at the academy, decorated with honors from campaigns across the outer rim. His crystalline armor caught the arena lights, sending refracted colors dancing across the walls. "Cadets," his voice boomed through the chamber's speaker system. "Welcome to this year's Trial of Valor." The crowd fell silent immediately. Even the impacts from inside the pod seemed to pause, as if the creature within was listening too. "For 300 cycles, this academy has tested the courage of its finest warriors," Corvin continued, pacing slowly around the containment pod. "We do not expect victory. We do not demand triumph. We ask only that you face your fear and survive long enough to prove your worth." He stopped walking and placed one hand on the pod. Another impact rang out, making several cadets flinch. Corvin didn't move. "This year we have acquired something special. Something that has never been defeated in single combat. Not by Threxian shock troops. Not by Zelthari assassins. Not by any warrior of any species that has faced it." The instructor gestured, and a holographic projection appeared above the pod. It showed a creature that made several cadets gasp. The image displayed something that looked like a nightmare-given physical form. 12 feet of corded muscle, covered in sleek black scales that seemed to absorb light. 6 limbs ending in curved claws as long as a human forearm. A head that was all angles and teeth, with sensory organs that glowed a sickly yellow in the projection. "The Krivax," Corvin announced. "Apex predator of Theta Crimson 7. A death world where evolution created the perfect hunter. It can change its skin to match any environment in seconds. Can track prey by scent across 50 miles. Its reaction speed is 4 times faster than the average Threxian. And it has never known defeat." Claire studied the hologram carefully. She noticed how the creature's weight distribution favored its rear limbs. She saw how its sensory organs clustered near the front of its head, suggesting it relied heavily on forward-facing detection. She observed the thickness of its scales at different points on its body. "The rules are simple," Corvin said. "Enter the arena. Survive for 5 minutes. Exit with your honor intact. You will have standard combat gear. The Krivax will have its freedom. Your task is not to win. Your task is to not break." He looked up at the observation gallery, his multifaceted eyes scanning the crowd of cadets. "This is not mandatory. But those who volunteer will be remembered. Those who succeed will be honored. Those who refuse will not be judged, for wisdom is knowing one's limits." Silence filled the gallery. Claire could hear the breathing of the cadet next to her, quick and shallow. Fear had a smell, she realized. It was the same across species. "Who will go first?" Corvin asked. More silence. A few of the larger cadets shifted their weight, looking at each other. These were the Academy's elite, warriors who had proven themselves in simulation after simulation. But none of them moved. Claire's hand went up. It wasn't a dramatic gesture. She simply raised her right hand, steady and calm, as if she were asking a question in class. Every head in the gallery turned toward her. The whispers started immediately. "The human. Is she serious? Someone stop her. Humans are fragile. She'll die in seconds." Corvin's eyes found her in the crowd. For a moment, something like concern crossed his alien features. Then his expression hardened into professional neutrality. "Cadet Foster," he said. "You volunteer first?" "Yes, sir," Claire replied. Her voice was quiet but clear. "You understand what you're facing?" "Yes, sir." A Zelthari cadet, nearly 7 feet tall with rippling muscle visible beneath his scaled hide, leaned toward Claire. His voice was genuinely concerned, not mocking. "Human, you don't have to do this. Let one of us go first. You can volunteer later after you've seen how it moves. Claire turned to look at him. She was barely 5.5 feet tall, slim in her academy uniform. Next to him she looked like a child. But her eyes were steady. "Thank you," she said simply. "But I'm ready now." The Zelthari cadet shook his head slowly, clearly thinking she was making a terrible mistake. Corvin's voice cut through the murmurs. "Very well. Cadet Foster, report to the preparation room. You have 10 minutes to equip yourself." Claire moved through the crowd toward the exit. Other cadets stepped aside to let her pass, some of them looking at her with what might have been respect, others with obvious pity. One whispered to his friend as she passed, "I give her 30 seconds before she calls for extraction." 30 seconds? You're generous. Humans are weak. They have no natural weapons, no armor, no speed. What was Command thinking, allowing them into the academy? Claire heard the words but didn't respond. She'd heard similar things since her first day at the academy. Humans were new to the galactic community, still proving themselves. Most species saw them as curious oddities, intelligent but physically inferior. Soft things that belonged in research labs, not combat zones. The preparation room was small and efficient. Standard combat gear hung on the walls. Light armor that would stop claws but not crush damage. An energy shield good for 3 or 4 hits. A stun baton that could drop most creatures if used correctly. Claire equipped herself methodically, checking each piece of gear twice. As she fastened the last strap on her armor, she caught her reflection in the polished metal of a locker. Brown hair pulled back in a tight braid. Gray eyes that her grandmother always said were too old for her face. Skin that had never known natural sunlight, born as she was on a colony station. She thought about home. About Earth's restored wilderness preserves where she'd grown up after her family moved there. About running through forests where her ancestors had once hunted. About the stories her grandfather told of the old days before humans went to space, when they were the apex predators of their own world. The intercom crackled. "Cadet Foster. The arena is ready." Claire took a slow breath, centering herself. Then she walked toward the door. It was time to show them what humans really were. The arena floor was cold beneath Claire's boots as she stepped through the reinforcement door. Behind her, it sealed with a hiss of pressurized air. Above, in the observation gallery, hundreds of faces pressed against the transparent barrier, watching her every move. The containment pod sat in the center of the arena, silent now. Whatever was inside had stopped its impacts. That meant it knew something had changed. It was waiting. Instructor Corvin's voice echoed through the space. "Cadet Foster, acknowledge ready status." Claire touched the communicator on her collar. "Ready, sir. The trial begins when the pod opens. Survive for 5 minutes. Call for extraction if needed. We will respond immediately." There was a pause. "Good luck, cadet." The pod's locks disengaged with a series of heavy clanks. Steam hissed from the seals. The front panel began to lower, forming a ramp to the arena floor. For 3 seconds nothing happened. The opening remained dark and empty. Then it emerged. The Krivax moved like liquid shadow, pouring out of the pod with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. Its scales shifted colors immediately, matching the gray of the arena floor almost perfectly. Only its glowing yellow sensory organs gave away its position as it circled to the right, sizing up its opponent. Claire turned slowly, keeping the creature in her line of sight. She didn't raise her weapon. She didn't activate her shield. She simply watched it, her breathing steady and controlled. The Krivax stopped moving. Its head tilted, sensory organs focusing on her. She could almost feel it analyzing her, running through instincts honed over millions of years of evolution. Small prey. Soft skin. No visible weapons. No defensive posture. Easy kill. It struck with blinding speed, closing 30 feet in less than a second. Claws extended, aimed at her center mass. Claire moved just enough. Not a full dodge, just a slight shift to her left. The Krivax's claws passed inches from her torso, striking nothing but air. She didn't flinch. Didn't stumble. Just repositioned her feet and continued watching it. The creature landed and spun immediately, confused. Prey didn't move like that. Prey ran or fought or froze in terror. This small thing had done none of those. It attacked again, even faster this time. A blur of claws and teeth. Claire sidestepped, her movements minimal and efficient. She was reading its attack pattern now, seeing how it favored its right side by a fraction of a second. How it pulled back slightly before each lunge, gathering energy in its powerful rear legs. The Krivax's third attack came from a different angle, trying to compensate for her movement. Its claws scraped across her energy shield, which flared bright blue and absorbed the impact. The shield's power indicator dropped by 30% from a single hit. Claire began to move. Not running, not fleeing. She walked in a steady circle around the arena, her pace constant and measured. Her eyes never left the Krivax. The creature followed, prowling after her. It was used to prey that exhausted themselves in panic, that made mistakes in their desperation to escape. But this human just kept walking, her breathing unchanged, her pace unwavering. It charged again. Claire activated her shield at the last possible second, absorbing another strike. The shield flickered but held. She continued walking. In the observation gallery, the Zelthari cadet who had tried to warn her earlier leaned toward his companion. What is she doing? She's not even fighting back. She's just walking in circles, another cadet observed. The Krivax will tire eventually, but so will she. Humans have even less endurance than most species. But Instructor Corvin was watching more carefully. His eyes narrowed as he studied Claire's movement pattern. Something about it was familiar, though he couldn't place it yet. The Krivax was getting frustrated. Its attacks became more frequent, more aggressive. It would strike, miss or hit the shield, then have to recover its position. Each time, Claire simply kept moving, forcing it to chase her, making it expend energy to close the distance again and again. 2 minutes had passed. The creature's scales were shifting colors rapidly now, a sign of stress. Its breathing had become audible, harsh rasps that echoed in the arena. It was built for explosive speed, for overwhelming prey in seconds. Not for extended pursuit. Claire's breathing remained steady. In through her nose, out through her mouth. The rhythm her grandfather had taught her during their runs through the preserve. The same rhythm humans had used for tens of thousands of years, running down prey that was faster, stronger, more dangerous. She began to vary her pattern. Instead of a simple circle, she moved in a figure 8, then cut across the arena at an angle. The Krivax had to constantly adjust, constantly recalculate. It couldn't settle into an efficient pursuit pattern. Another strike. Claire's shield absorbed it and finally failed, dissolving in a shower of blue sparks. She didn't react, just kept moving. Now she used her stun baton not to attack but to deflect. When the Krivax lunged, she would redirect its claws with minimal contact, using its own momentum against it. 3 minutes. The creature was slowing down. Not much, but Claire could see it. The gap between its attacks was growing longer. It needed more time to recover between charges. Its scales had stopped changing colors, locked in a mottled pattern that suggested its camouflage system was overloaded. Claire maintained eye contact whenever the creature looked at her. Direct, unblinking stares. In the animal kingdom of Earth, that was a challenge. A statement of dominance. The Krivax's sensory organs would flicker away, then snap back, unable to understand why this prey wouldn't look away in submission. She was inside its head now, making it question its instincts. The Krivax tried a new tactic. It stopped chasing and went still, hoping to ambush her when she passed. But Claire simply stopped as well, standing in place, watching it. Waiting. Her leg muscles barely registered the strain. She could stand like this for hours if needed. The creature broke first. It charged again, and this time Claire could hear the desperation in its movement. It was trying to end this, to finish what should have been over in seconds. She dodged, and for the first time she moved toward it instead of away. She slipped inside its reach and tapped it on its flank with her stun baton. Not a full strike, just enough to make contact. The Krivax spun with a shriek, but she was already moving away, back to her steady walking pattern. 4 minutes. In the gallery the whispers had stopped. Every cadet was leaning forward now, watching something they didn't quite understand but couldn't look away from. The Krivax was panting heavily. Its attacks had become sluggish, almost half-hearted. It would lunge, miss, and have to rest for several seconds before trying again. Its powerful muscles, built for explosive action, were flooding with lactic acid. Its energy reserves, meant for short bursts of extreme activity, were depleted. Claire was barely breathing hard. She'd been jogging at an easy pace for 4 minutes. For a human, that was nothing. Her ancestors had chased prey for hours, sometimes days. They would follow wounded animals until the creatures literally collapsed from exhaustion. The timer hit 4 minutes and 30 seconds. The Krivax tried one more charge, but its legs nearly gave out halfway through. It stumbled, caught itself, and stood there swaying slightly. Claire stopped walking. She stood still and looked at it. Really looked at it. The apex predator of a death world, the undefeated champion of the arena, stood before her with its head lowered, its breathing ragged and desperate. And for the first time in its life, it took a step backward. The 5-minute mark came and went. The automated system chimed softly, signaling that Claire had met the minimum requirement for the trial. The arena doors would unlock now, allowing her to exit with honor intact. Claire didn't move toward the doors. She stood perfectly still, 20 feet from the Krivax, watching it with the same unwavering attention she'd maintained since the trial began. In the observation gallery, confusion rippled through the crowd of cadets. The Zelthari cadet who had warned Claire earlier pressed closer to the transparent barrier. Why isn't she leaving? She passed the trial. Maybe she's too scared to move, another suggested, though the words sounded uncertain even as they were spoken. Instructor Corvin touched his communicator, opening a channel to the arena. Cadet Foster, you have completed the trial. You may exit now. Claire's hand moved to her collar, pressing the response button. Requesting permission to continue, sir. Silence filled the gallery. Corvin's crystalline features hardened into an expression that might have been concern or perhaps fascination. Cadet, that is not advised. You have proven your courage. There is no need to risk further injury. Understood, sir. But I'm not injured. And neither is the Krivax. I request permission to continue. The creature in question was watching this exchange with its yellow sensory organs fixed on Claire. Its breathing had slowed somewhat, but its legs still trembled with exhaustion. It had never encountered anything like this before. Every instinct it possessed was screaming contradictory commands. This was prey. Small, weak, fragile prey. But prey didn't stand their ground after the hunter backed away. Prey didn't choose to stay when escape was offered. Prey didn't look at you with eyes that held no fear, only patience. Corvin consulted with two other instructors briefly, their voices too low for the cadets to hear. Finally he spoke again. Permission granted. But we will stop this immediately if we detect serious danger to either participant. Acknowledged? Acknowledged, sir. Thank you. Claire took a single step forward. The Krivax immediately tensed, scales rippling as it prepared to defend itself. But Claire stopped, giving it space, showing it that she wasn't attacking. Just claiming ground. She took another step. Then another. Each movement was slow and deliberate, giving the creature time to process what was happening. She was advancing but not charging. Moving closer but not threatening immediate violence. The Krivax's head lowered slightly. Its sensory organs tracked her movement with frantic intensity. In its world, in every hunt it had ever known, there were clear roles. Hunter and hunted. Predator and prey. Those roles never reversed. They couldn't reverse. That wasn't how nature worked. But this small creature was rewriting rules the Krivax didn't even know existed. Claire began to circle again, but this time her path was tightening, spiraling inward. The Krivax turned to follow her movement, but it was no longer stalking. It was tracking a threat. Its posture had shifted from offensive to defensive, claws pulled in slightly, weight distributed to allow for quick retreat rather than quick attack. One of the cadets in the gallery, a being with multiple optical sensors, suddenly made a sound of realization. She's hurting it. Look at the pattern. She's controlling where it moves. It was true. Every time the Krivax tried to move toward the center of the arena, Claire would adjust her position, cutting off that route. When it tried to back toward the walls, she would shift again, leaving it only one direction to move. And that direction was exactly where she wanted it to go. The creature was intelligent enough to recognize what was happening, but too exhausted to counter it effectively. Its burst speed was gone. Its ambush capability was neutralized. All it had left was its size and its claws, and Claire was staying just out of reach of both. She stopped circling and stood motionless again. The Krivax stopped as well, watching her. Waiting for her next move. That was the confirmation of what had happened here. The apex predator was now reacting to its prey's movements instead of dictating the flow of the encounter. Claire took 3 quick steps forward. The Krivax scrambled backward, its claws scraping against the arena floor in its haste to maintain distance. It hit the wall behind it and pressed against it, trapped in the corner where Claire had methodically herded it. She didn't pursue further. She simply stood there, maintaining that unbroken eye contact. Seconds passed. Then a minute. The Krivax tried to move left, but Claire shifted to cut it off. It tried to move right and she mirrored the movement. Each time it retreated back to the corner. In the gallery, a senior instructor Claire had never seen before arrived and stood next to Corvin. The two spoke in low voices. How long has this been going on? 7 minutes total. She's been in control for the last 3. That's impossible. The Krivax has defeated some of our best warriors. Watch her breathing pattern, Corvin said quietly. Watch how she moves. I've seen this before in historical archives. Ancient Earth hunting techniques. They called it persistence hunting. The senior instructor's eyes widened. Their species evolved as pursuit predators? Among other things. We classified them as weak because they lack natural weapons and armor. We didn't consider that they might have other evolutionary advantages. On the arena floor, Claire began a new pattern. She would advance 2 steps, forcing the Krivax to press harder against the wall, then retreat 1 step, giving it hope of escape. Then advance 3 steps, taking away that hope. Then retreat 2. The pattern was random enough that the creature couldn't predict it, couldn't prepare for it. She was teaching it something. Every advance showed it that she could come closer whenever she chose. Every retreat showed it that she controlled the distance between them. She was the one making decisions now. She was the one with power. The Krivax's scales had gone completely gray, matching the wall behind it. But this wasn't active camouflage anymore. This was a stress response, the creature's body defaulting to a neutral state as its higher functions struggled to process the impossible situation. Claire pulled her stun baton from her belt. The movement was casual, unhurried. She held it loosely at her side, not in a fighting stance. Just a reminder that she had weapons too. That she'd been choosing not to use them. The Krivax's eyes fixed on the baton. It had felt that weapon before, during the brief contact strike Claire had landed minutes ago. The touch that said, "I can hurt you whenever I want." She took another step forward. The creature tried to make itself smaller, pulling its limbs in tighter. An apex predator, a perfect killing machine from a death world, was trying to appear less threatening to something a fraction of its size. The psychological reversal was complete. Claire lowered the baton and attached it back to her belt. She took 2 steps backward, opening up space. The Krivax didn't move immediately, uncertain if this was another test. When she took another step back, it finally shifted, moving along the wall away from the corner. Not attacking. Not even approaching. Just trying to find a space where it felt safer. She let it go. Stood there and watched it create distance between them. The creature that had started this encounter as an unstoppable predator was now voluntarily retreating from its prey. In the gallery, complete silence had fallen. Even the instructors had stopped talking. They were witnessing something that shouldn't be possible according to every combat doctrine they'd ever studied. Claire looked up at the observation window, finding Instructor Corvin among the crowd. She touched her communicator. "Sir, I believe the Krivax has learned the lesson. Requesting permission to proceed to the final phase." Corvin's voice came back, and for the first time since Claire had known him, she heard uncertainty in it. "Final phase, Cadet Foster?" "Yes, sir. I'd like to show it that humans can be merciful too." Claire moved with sudden purpose, her casual stance shifting into something more focused. The Krivax, still pressed against the far wall, tracked her movement with wary sensory organs. It had put 30 feet between them, but that distance suddenly felt meaningless. She began to walk forward, not in her previous circular pattern, but in a direct line toward the creature. Her pace was steady, measured, inevitable. 1 step every 2 seconds. The rhythm was hypnotic, mechanical. She wasn't chasing. She was advancing like a force of nature. The Krivax shifted left along the wall. Claire adjusted her angle, cutting off that direction. It shifted right. She adjusted again. Every time it tried to create distance, she was there, herding it back toward the corner she'd claimed as her territory. In the observation gallery, a cadet from a species Claire didn't recognize leaned toward his companion. "She's going to attack now. Finally." But Instructor Corvin shook his head slowly. "No. Watch carefully. She's doing something else. Something worse." Claire drew her stun baton again, but she didn't raise it to strike. Instead, she held it low and tapped it against her leg armor as she walked. The rhythmic clicking sound echoed through the arena. Step, 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 step. A metronome of approaching danger. The Krivax lunged suddenly, a desperate attempt to break past her and reach the open arena. But its exhaustion betrayed it. The movement was slow compared to its earlier attacks, telegraphed and clumsy. Claire sidestepped easily and struck with her baton, a quick jab to the creature's shoulder joint. The Krivax shrieked and stumbled, not from pain but from the shock of the impact. Claire had targeted the exact same spot she'd touched during her earlier strike. The same location. The creature's basic pattern recognition was firing warning signals now. This hunter aimed for specific places. This hunter struck with intention. It scrambled away but Claire followed. Same pace. Same steady advancement. She wasn't trying to catch it. She was showing it that distance didn't matter. Fast or slow, the outcome would be the same. The senior instructor in the gallery turned to Corvin. She's mimicking pursuit predation. The old Earth style. Yes, Corvin replied. Humans didn't evolve to kill prey quickly. They evolved to kill it inevitably. They would chase animals for hours, sometimes days, striking at the same wounds repeatedly until the prey simply couldn't continue. That's barbaric. That's effective. And it's why humans survived when stronger species on their world went extinct. Claire struck again, same shoulder, as the Krivax tried to circle past her. The creature's right front limb was weakening now, the repeated impacts taking their toll. It tried to compensate by favoring its other limbs, but that made it slower, more unbalanced. She drove it back toward the corner. When it tried to stand its ground and fight, she would retreat slightly, conserving her energy. When it tried to rest, she would advance, forcing it to move again. She was controlling every aspect of the encounter now, dictating when action happened and when it didn't. The Krivax attempted another attack, claws extended toward Claire's midsection. She blocked with her baton, deflecting the strike, then countered with a precise jab to the creature's rear leg joint. A new target. The Krivax's hind leg buckled slightly before it caught itself. 2 targets now. Shoulder and leg. Both on the right side. Claire was systematically dismantling the creature's mobility, choosing her strikes with surgical precision. A cadet in the gallery made a sound of distress. Someone should stop this. The human is torturing it. But another cadet, an older one with scars from real combat, shook his head. No. She's teaching it. Watch the Krivax's reactions. It's not panicking anymore. It's learning. It was true. The creature's movements had become more calculated, less instinctive. It was watching Claire's patterns, trying to predict her strikes, attempting to defend the joints she'd already targeted. It was being forced to think tactically instead of relying on predatory instinct. Claire feinted toward the Krivax's injured shoulder, and the creature flinched, pulling that limb back protectively. But Claire's real strike went low, another tap to the rear leg. The Krivax's leg gave out completely this time, and it crashed to the floor with a heavy thud. It scrambled back to its feet immediately, but now it was limping badly. 3 legs supporting weight meant for 6. Claire didn't press her advantage. She stopped and waited, giving it time to recover its stance. The senior instructor's voice was quiet. Why did she stop? She could finish it now. Corvin's expression was unreadable. Because that's not the lesson she's teaching. She's not showing it how to kill. She's showing it how humans hunt. With patience. With strategy. With the understanding that the end is certain, so there's no need to rush. Claire began her advance again. The Krivax tried to back away, but the wall was behind it. It was cornered again, injured, exhausted, and facing an opponent that refused to stop coming. She struck the shoulder joint 3 times in rapid succession. The Krivax's front leg collapsed completely, hanging useless. The creature roared in frustration and pain, a sound that echoed through the arena like thunder. But Claire's expression didn't change. She simply reset her stance and waited for it to adjust to its new limitations. Now the Krivax was on 2 functional front limbs and 2 functional rear limbs. Its mobility was cut by more than half. Its attack options were severely limited. And still, the small human stood before it, stun baton ready, breathing steadily. The creature tried one more desperate gambit. It lunged with its full weight, trying to crush Claire against the floor through sheer mass. But she read the movement before it happened, saw the shift in weight distribution and rolled aside. As the Krivax crashed into the spot where she'd been standing, she struck both of its rear leg joints in quick succession. The creature's legs gave out. It collapsed to the arena floor, unable to support its own weight. Not unconscious, not dying, but completely immobilized. Its sensory organs tracked Claire as she stood up and dusted herself off, the yellow glow dim now with exhaustion and defeat. Claire walked to stand directly in front of the fallen Krivax. She could have struck its head. Could have delivered a finishing blow to prove total dominance. Instead, she knelt down slowly, putting herself at eye level with the creature. They looked at each other for a long moment. Predator and prey, except the roles had been reversed so completely that the terms no longer seemed to apply. Claire reached out slowly and placed her hand on the Krivax's uninjured shoulder, just resting it there. Not a strike. Not a threat. A gesture that said, "This is over and you are still alive because I chose mercy." The Krivax's scales shifted one final time, fading to a pale gray that signified submission. In its entire existence, across dozens of worlds and hundreds of hunts, it had never known defeat. Had never experienced being outmatched, outwitted, and outlasted by something it should have killed in seconds. Claire stood up and stepped back. She touched her communicator. "Instructor Corvin, the lesson is complete. The Krivax is injured but stable. Requesting medical team for treatment. She walked toward the arena exit, leaving the apex predator lying on the floor behind her, alive and forever changed. The arena doors sealed behind Claire as she stepped into the preparation room. Her hands were steady as she removed her light armor, checking each piece for damage. The energy shield generator was completely drained. Her stun baton showed 70% charge remaining. Her armor had 3 deep scratches across the chest plate where the Krivax's first strike had nearly connected. She could hear muffled sounds from the observation gallery above. Voices raised in argument or discussion. She ignored them and focused on her post-combat checklist, the same routine she followed after every training exercise. The door to the preparation room opened. Instructor Corvin entered, his 4 arms held in a gesture that Claire had learned meant deep respect among his people. Behind him came the senior instructor and 3 others she didn't recognize. "Cadet Foster," Corvin said. His voice was formal, controlled. "Please come with us." Claire hung up her armor and followed them through corridors she'd never walked before. They passed training rooms and tactical centers until they reached a large assembly hall. Inside, what looked like the entire academy staff had gathered. Hundreds of instructors from dozens of species, all watching as she entered. She stopped in the center of the room, standing at attention. Her academy training kept her back straight and her expression neutral, even though her heart was beating faster now than it had during the entire trial. Corvin stood before the assembled instructors. 347 cycles ago, this academy implemented the Trial of Valor. In that time, we have tested our cadets against hundreds of apex predators from across known space. We have seen victories. We have seen failures. We have seen courage and we have seen wisdom in knowing when to retreat. He paused, his crystalline eyes reflecting the chamber's lights. But in all that time, across all those trials, no cadet has ever defeated a Krivax in single combat. Until today. The room remained silent. Claire could feel hundreds of eyes on her, analyzing, questioning, trying to understand what they had witnessed. The senior instructor stepped forward. She was a species Claire didn't recognize, with silver skin and no visible sensory organs. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Cadet Foster, you have achieved something unprecedented. But achievements mean nothing without understanding. Explain to us what happened in that arena. How did you defeat a creature that has killed trained warriors from a dozen species?" Claire took a breath. Public speaking had never been her strength, but she'd learned that the direct approach worked best. "I didn't defeat it with strength or speed," she said. "I defeated it with time." "Elaborate," the senior instructor commanded. "The Krivax is built for explosive power. Fast attacks, overwhelming force, quick kills. That's how apex predators work on death worlds. They have to be efficient because high-energy hunting is expensive." Claire's voice was steady now, falling into the rhythm of explaining a concept she understood deeply. "But humans evolved differently. We're pursuit predators. We're built to keep going long after other species would collapse from exhaustion." Corvin nodded slowly. "Persistence hunting. We found references to it in your species' historical databases after the trial ended. Your ancestors would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until the animal literally couldn't run anymore." "Yes, sir. We're not fast, but we don't need to be. We can maintain a steady pace almost indefinitely. Our bodies regulate temperature through sweating, which lets us operate at high output for extended periods. Most species overheat and have to stop. We just keep going." A Threxian instructor near the back spoke up. "But you did more than simply outlast it. You targeted specific joints, disabled its mobility systematically. That suggests tactical thinking beyond simple endurance." Claire nodded. "Endurance is only part of it. Humans also evolved pattern recognition and strategic planning. We had to, because the prey we hunted was often bigger and more dangerous than us. We learned to identify weaknesses, exploit them, and work toward a specific goal over time. You turned its instincts against it," another instructor observed. "Made it behave like prey when it was designed to be a predator." "Yes, sir. The Krivax expected me to act like every other prey animal it had encountered. Run, hide, panic, make mistakes. When I just kept coming back, it didn't know how to respond. Its instincts had no answer for something that refused to stop." The senior instructor moved closer to Claire, studying her with whatever senses her species possessed. "You showed mercy at the end. What? You could have delivered a killing blow. Instead, you disabled it and requested medical assistance." Claire met the instructor's eyeless gaze steadily. "Because the point wasn't to kill it, ma'am. The point was to show that humans can win. And winning doesn't always mean destroying your opponent. Sometimes it means teaching them that continued resistance is pointless. A long silence followed. Then Corvin spoke again. Cadet Foster, for the past 6 cycles since humans joined the Academy, we have placed your species in support roles. Research, logistics, technical positions. We believed you lacked the physical capabilities for frontline combat. I know, sir. We were wrong. The words seemed to cost him something. Not about your physical capabilities. Those assessments were accurate. But we failed to understand that combat effectiveness isn't measured only in strength and speed. Your species brings something to warfare that we hadn't properly valued. The refusal to quit, Claire said quietly. Yes. Corvin's expression shifted to something that might have been a smile. You don't have natural weapons. You're not particularly fast or strong compared to most species. But you have something more dangerous than any of that. You have the ability to make your opponents believe that defeating you is impossible because you will never, ever stop coming. The senior instructor raised one silver appendage. This trial will be studied extensively. Your performance has implications for combat doctrine, tactical training, and our understanding of human capabilities. You will likely be asked to help develop new training protocols. I'm willing to help however I can, ma'am. There is one more thing. The senior instructor gestured, and a younger staff member approached carrying a small container. The Academy maintains records of every trial of valor. Each victory is marked with an honor token. These are rare. Most cadets who face apex predators simply survive. They don't win. The container opened. Inside was a small crystal medallion, glowing with soft internal light. This is only the 47th victory token awarded in the Academy's history, the senior instructor continued. And the first ever awarded for defeating a Krivax. She lifted the medallion and placed it around Claire's neck. The crystal was warm against her skin. Cadet Claire Foster, you have brought honor to yourself, to your species, and to this Academy. You have shown us that humanity's greatest weapon is not technology or physical prowess. It is the simple, terrifying fact that you never know when to give up. The assembly of instructors responded in their various ways. Some saluted in their species' fashion. Others made sounds of respect. A few simply bowed their heads in acknowledgement. Claire stood there, feeling the weight of the medallion and the eyes of hundreds of experienced warriors who were seeing humans differently for the first time. Corvin stepped beside her and spoke quietly, meant only for her ears. The other cadets are waiting outside. They've been demanding to speak with you since the trial ended. Are you ready for that? Claire thought about the whispers she'd heard since arriving at the Academy. The assumptions about human weakness. The doubts about whether her species belonged among warriors. Yes, sir, she said. I'm ready. The doors opened and she walked out to meet them. Behind her, instructors were already beginning discussions about how to integrate human endurance tactics into Academy training. About what it meant that the physically weakest species had defeated something none of them could. But Claire wasn't thinking about any of that. She was thinking about her grandfather, about running through Earth's forests, about the stories of ancient hunters who would chase their prey until the sun set and rose again. Humanity had finally shown the galaxy what they really were. Not the strongest, not the fastest, but absolutely, undeniably, the most relentless species ever to reach for the stars. And that, Claire knew, was more than enough.